He slapped her in court, but their hearts found love through a mother's intervention. The slap that shook the courtroom. The Boston courthouse buzzed with whispers and tense glances. Nadine Morrow sat in the witness chair, her hands gripping the edge of the seat, her eyes fixed on the floor. She wore a simple navy blue dress, her chestnut hair pulled back neatly behind her head. Across the room stood Darrell Harrison, the man who had once been her lover, her husband, her soulmate. But the years had transformed him into someone she barely recognized. Darrell was a successful businessman, his elegant black suit reflecting his power and wealth, but his face was stone cold, his grey eyes as icy as winter frost. The case revolved around custody of their young daughter, but it had devolved into a bitter personal battle. "You were never a good mother," Darrell said, his voice sharp, cutting through the courtroom silence. "All you ever cared about was yourself." Nadine slowly raised her head, her brown eyes glistening with suppressed tears. "That's not true, Darrell. You know I love our daughter more than anything in this world." He approached her with quick steps, his face flushed with anger. "Don't lie to me." Suddenly, before anyone realized what was happening, he raised his hand and slapped her hard across the face. The sound of the slap echoed through the courtroom like thunder. Everyone froze in place, shock evident on every face. Nadine didn't scream, didn't cry, didn't move. She simply placed her hand gently on her reddened cheek, her eyes looking at him with a mixture of pain and disbelief. The judge banged his gavel forcefully. "Order! Mr. Harrison, this behavior is absolutely unacceptable." But the deed was done. The rift between them had become a deep chasm. In that moment, a woman stood from the back row. Her silver hair was styled gracefully, and despite her age, she moved with dignified purpose. Evelyn Morrow, Nadine's mother, walked steadily down the aisle, her eyes never leaving Darrell's face, the wise mother's intervention. Evelyn Morrow stood before Darrell, her posture straight despite her 70 years. The courtroom fell into complete silence as everyone waited to see what would happen next. Darrell expected anger, perhaps even another confrontation, but what came next surprised everyone. "Darrell," Evelyn said softly, her voice carrying a warmth that seemed to fill the entire room. "Look at me." Reluctantly, Darrell met her gaze. Her blue eyes held no hatred, no judgment, only a deep sadness and something else he couldn't quite identify. Compassion, perhaps. "I remember the young man who came to our door 10 years ago," Evelyn continued, stepping closer. "Nervous, clutching flowers, his hands trembling as he asked my permission to take Nadine on their first date. That young man had kindness in his eyes. He had dreams, yes, but also humility. He promised me he would cherish my daughter, protect her, love her with everything he had." Darrell's jaw tightened, but he didn't look away. Somewhere deep inside, Evelyn's words were finding their mark. "What happened to that man, Darrell?" Evelyn asked, her voice breaking slightly. "What happened to the boy who would drive 2 hours just to bring Nadine her favorite coffee when she was studying for exams? The man who cried tears of joy when your daughter was born? Where is he?" Nadine watched from her seat, tears now flowing freely down her cheeks. She had forgotten those moments, buried them under years of arguments and disappointments. "Success changed you," Evelyn said, placing her hand gently on Darrell's arm. "Money and power became your gods, and somewhere along the way, you lost yourself. But Darrell, it's not too late. The man I met all those years ago is still inside you, buried beneath all this anger and pride. My daughter still loves you, though you've given her every reason not to." Darrell's hands began to tremble. His breathing became shallow. For the first time in years, the armor he had built around his heart began to crack. Evelyn turned to address the entire courtroom. "Love isn't just about the good times. It's about fighting for each other even when everything seems lost. It's about remembering the promises we made and the people we once were." Memories of first love. That night, Darrell sat alone in his penthouse apartment, staring at the city lights below. Evelyn's words echoed in his mind, refusing to let him rest. He walked to his study and opened a drawer he hadn't touched in years. Inside lay a small wooden box, covered in dust. With shaking hands, he opened it. Photographs spilled out, each one a window to another time. There was Nadine at 22, laughing in the park, her hair dancing in the wind. Another showed them at their college graduation, his arm around her waist, both beaming with hope for the future. He picked up a photo from their wedding day, Nadine in her white dress, looking at him with such love and trust that his chest tightened painfully. He remembered that autumn day when they first met in the university library. She had dropped her books, and he had helped her pick them up. Their hands touched as they both reached for the same novel, and when their eyes met, something clicked into place in his soul. "You like Hemingway?" he had asked, holding up the book. "Love him," she had replied with a shy smile that made his heart skip. They had talked for hours that day, forgetting about their classes, about everything except each other. He remembered their first kiss under the old oak tree on campus, her lips soft and tentative against his. He remembered late-night conversations about their dreams, about building a life together, about the family they would have. Where had it all gone wrong? He traced his finger over Nadine's face in their wedding photo. She had been 25, radiant with joy. He had been 27, full of ambition but also full of love. He remembered his vows: "I promise to honor you, to support you, to never let pride or anger come between us." He had broken every promise. The realization hit him like a physical blow, and for the first time in years, Daryl Harrison wept. Breaking down and confession. 3 days after the courtroom incident, Daryl requested a private mediation session. When Nadine arrived with her lawyer and her mother, she found Daryl already there, but he looked different. His usual confident posture was gone, replaced by hunched shoulders and tired eyes. "Nadine," he began, his voice hoarse, "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I need to say things I should have said years ago." Nadine sat down slowly, her mother beside her, holding her hand. Daryl stood and walked to the window, unable to meet her eyes. "When I started my company, I told myself I was doing it for us, for our future family. But somewhere along the way, the success became about proving something to myself, to everyone who ever doubted me. I became obsessed with winning, with being the best, with never showing weakness." He turned to face her, tears streaming down his face. "And I forgot the most important thing, that I already had everything that mattered. I had you. I had our daughter. I had love. But I was too blind, too arrogant to see it." Nadine's own tears fell as she listened, her heart torn between the pain he had caused and the man she still remembered loving. "When I slapped you," Daryl's voice broke completely, "I saw my father. I became the man I swore I would never be. Nadine, I am so deeply sorry. Not just for that moment, but for every harsh word, every missed dinner, every time I chose work over you, every moment I made you feel small or unimportant." He fell to his knees before her. "You were right to leave me. You were right to fight for our daughter. I don't deserve either of you. But if there's any chance, any possibility that we could start over, I swear on everything I am that I will spend the rest of my life becoming the man you fell in love with again." Nadine looked at her mother, whose wise eyes encouraged her to follow her heart. Slowly, Nadine reached out and touched Daryl's face, her fingers gentle on his tear-stained cheek. "I never stopped loving you, Daryl," she whispered. "I just stopped recognizing you." Reconciliation and renewed love. 6 months later, the Boston waterfront glowed with the golden light of sunset. Daryl and Nadine walked hand in hand along the pier, their daughter playing nearby under Evelyn's watchful eye. It had been a long journey of therapy, honest conversations, and rebuilding trust brick by brick. Daryl had stepped back from his company, appointing a capable CEO while he focused on what truly mattered. He attended anger management counseling and joined Nadine in couples therapy every week. Slowly, painfully, they learned to communicate again, to be vulnerable with each other. "Remember our first date?" Nadine asked, leaning against the railing as they watched the sun sink toward the horizon. "I took you to that terrible Italian restaurant," Daryl laughed, the sound genuine and warm. "The pasta was overcooked, and the waiter spilled wine on my shirt. But we laughed so hard," Nadine said, smiling at the memory. "You said it was perfect because any night with me was perfect." Daryl pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "I meant it then, and I mean it now. Every moment with you is a gift I almost threw away." Nadine turned in his arms to face him. "We both made mistakes, Daryl. I shut you out too, stop trying to reach you. But we have a second chance now, and I don't want to waste it." Their lips met in a kiss that held all the promise of new beginnings. It was tender and deep, filled with the love that had never truly died but only been buried under years of hurt and misunderstanding. Evelyn watched from a bench nearby, their daughter asleep in her arms, and smiled with satisfaction. Love, she knew, was the most powerful force in the universe when given the chance to heal. As the last rays of sunlight painted the sky in shades of pink and gold, Darryl whispered against Nadine's ear, "Thank you for not giving up on us. Thank you for seeing the man I could be again." "Thank you for finding your way back to me," Nadine replied, her hand resting over his heart. 4 lessons from this story. First, pride and anger are walls we build that imprison our own hearts. Tearing them down requires the courage to be vulnerable and the wisdom to remember who we truly are. Second, sometimes the people who love us most can see the good in us even when we've lost sight of it ourselves. Their faith can be the mirror that reflects our better nature back to us. Third, love is not just a feeling but a daily choice to honor, respect, and cherish another soul. It requires work, forgiveness, and the humility to admit when we are wrong. Fourth, second chances are precious gifts that demand we become better versions of ourselves. True reconciliation is not returning to what was, but building something stronger from the lessons learned in pain.